You have made me co-host, Fazana. Fazana?
Yeah, wait, Carol, I heard you.
I will make you.
Done.
Okay. Yeah, you are.
We can't see it on the screen, Carol.
We can't see it on the screen.
You have to share your screen first.
Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays. Today is the 35th season, 35th session of the season, second season of Wisdom Wellness, actually. We did one season which was about 31 or 32 shows, and then the second season is Wisdom Healing. So this is the fourth one, and it's healing with horoscopes for healing. I'm your host, and we have with us our Wisdom Wednesdays ladies, Soraya, Fazana, and Selvi, and our very special guest, Chintaka Patiranaka. Welcome, Chintaka. Our topic for today is horoscopes for healing, and I want to play the devil's advocate. You know, when we were kids, my mom didn't like the fact that my dad saved our time and wanted to do horoscope reading. We came from a Christian family. And so she would give him the wrong times. So one of the questions is, you know, if you have the wrong time, can you still read? I want to play devil's advocate. So it's astrology, horoscope readings, palm readings, etc. The power of suggestion. Is it an opium for those confused and unsure? I mean, we know that the tides are related to the moon. Are planets related to our lives? Before we move on to our guest, I would like to ask Soraya what she thinks. Soraya?
Thank you, Carol. You have raised the bar with some very important questions, and I think our guest is going to respond to them. In the meantime, I also want to just reiterate why we are here. In the last few series, we spoke about wellness through homeopathy, through acupuncture, and then eating fresh fruits and vegetables. And today we bring to you Mr. Chintaka, Chintaka Patran, who is going to talk about astrology. And again, also to just briefly touch base as to why else we are here. I think the world and we and our country, everything is going through a level of turbulence. So when we are in a plane and when there is, when you take off, you're always told to wear a seat belt because there is turbulence. So on the show, we are talking about how we can empower women to navigate that turbulence. And we ask you to stay with us and commit to national unity of our country. Because if there's one problem that is debilitating our country, it is the disunity. We can point all the fingers we want at every other country, every other community, but it is the lack of unity. And with the Wisdom Women, this is our goal, that we want to talk about national unity and how women can lead the way. And getting back to your question, Carol, I think I want to invite Selvi to also and Farzan to reflect on that. I have been a horoscope junkie all my life, you know. I come from a mixed background. My mom was a Buddhist and my father was Muslim. and we had horoscopes. My mom would take it to several people and get it read, and we had diverse opinions. And to this date, I don't know exactly which was more accurate, but like your mom did, where she didn't give the time, or she gave the wrong time, you said. That
Yes.
is a new thing
Yes.
I heard. Selvi, what is your take? You need to unmute, Selvi.
Yes, I also come from a family who used to take the horoscopes to many people to see, what our future holds for us and what are the problems that we are going to face and so on and so forth. And in my life, so long as the time is accurate and the horoscopes are cast in the best possible efficient manner, then I think there is a lot to learn from the horoscope, a lot that you can do with the horoscopes, because I feel that horoscopes actually are dealing with our energy body, and we are dealing with the other energy bodies affecting our energy body, and that is very, very relevant. And I think, Soraya, you made a very good point that when the horoscopes tell you when the turbulence happens, and the horoscopes, when they say the turbulence will happen, all you need is a seatbelt, right? At least to protect you from the turbulence. And the horoscopes give you that scope. So I believe in it very much.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
the
Selvi.
seat. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Thank you, Selvi. I just, before Selvi introduces Chintaka, I would like Fazana also to weigh in on this. Fazana?
Well, I must be the novice here. I've not had much experience in horoscopes myself, but I know a lot of friends have done it and a lot of my staff have done it. And yeah, I mean, they do believe in it. And they also say it's like when it's raining, you kind of hold an umbrella so that you don't get wet. So kind of use it as a guidance. But personally, I wouldn't say I've got much experience. So maybe it's also good for me, this program, to engage with Chintaka and learn something. Yeah.
Soraya, you had a question, sorry.
Yes, so my question is, I mean, is this in terms of just fueling this discussion, is astrology alone knowing that enough? Do we need a mindset transformation? Do we need to acquire skill set? And do we need to take inspired action so that we can really debunk the prediction if it is negative? Or do we head towards the prediction if it's positive, So these are issues that I'm really looking forward, and I hope our listeners and all of us can get responses today from our learned guest.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you,
Chintaka
Soraya.
would
Yeah.
put some light onto these questions.
Yes.
Yes, Carol.
Selvi, can you please introduce Chintaka?
Okay,
We have a lot to ask him.
Chintaka has impressed me very much in the past, because the way and the accuracy with which he read some of the horoscopes that I have taken to him, or rather my daughter took to him, and so that's why I thought he might be the best person to come and tell us all about it today. He is actually an astrologer and a palmist. But he did not start off as an astrologer and a palmist. He actually worked as a software IT professional for well over 3 decades. He hails from a family of indigenous Ayurvedic doctors. Both his grandfathers used horoscopes for treating and healing patients. His grandfather, with his ancestral background in traditional medicine, was commended and honored by the colonial government for his skills. There were the times where planetary charts of the inspection times were considered for treating the patients. Perhaps these traits must have influenced Chintaka to return to astrology after his sojourn as an IT professional. Now, after he gave up the IT profession, he has been pursuing the science of astrology and palmistry for over 25 years. He did the basics at the Institute of Astrological Research in Sri Lanka. Later studied Sri Lanka Vidyaloka Jyotir Vidyapith and Research Foundation, and furthered his education in completing Jyotish Prabhashwar, Jyotish Bhushana stages successfully. He was a secretary of the Research Foundation until 2008. He was conferred the title of Mahobadhyay from Indian Institute of Oriental Heritage in the year 2020 for the research work on the subject. Now, Chintaka, just to start you off on these questions. So please tell us, what made you leave the lucrative field like IT and go into astrology and palmistry? And how has the experience in the IT field helped you to be a better astrologer?
Thank you very much, Selvin, and thank you very much all for inviting me for this session, and wish you all a very good day. And Carol, I'm a cricket fan, and you put a very, very sort of a bouncer to greet me at the beginning. So am I to basically answer to Carol's question and go forth, or can I do that, or will answer during
No,
the...
that's fine. You can go ahead
Please
and
do,
answer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, any science, if you take there's a failure rate.
Can we first ask the question, please? Because I think the viewers...
Can you just ask, can you just, Chintaka, just repeat what I asked you, if you don't mind, and then you can give the
I
answer
think
as well.
Carol said that parents used to, or mother used to go to astrologers and just to check whether they are coming out with the right predictions and things like that, or to see that.
Sorry. What I meant was my father, when we were born, gave the wrong time because my mother gave the wrong time to my father because she did not want him to go and have our horoscopes read. She didn't believe in that. She was an educated woman, and she thought that it was not quite, in keeping. So yes.
Okay. Basically, I'll start with if you go to consider any science, there's a particular percentage that may be not right all the time. So it happens with astrology too. And it is due to various couple of factors, let me say, because this is said to be a very vast subject and we all learn a portion of it. That's one. Second thing is that our knowledge and judgment from person to person will vary. So those are there. And again, when the wrong time is given, the wrong sort of readings will be basically said. Obviously, I mean, you can't expect anything better. You give the wrong medicine to a wrong particular illness, you don't get it right. You can't expect it to. But so therefore, then the predictions and whatever that is said will vary. Not much, but if it's by a couple of hours, may not be much. But if it's by a couple of days, probably if your father was given the timing, he knows the day. Yes. For sure. Probably it will be the time. And I'm surprised, why didn't he know the time as well? Anyway, okay. So when that is taken, the horoscope will be a little different, not by much, but then the future will be predicted or whatever by the astrologer.
Okay.
And then the next thing was basically whether this is used to basically give a kind of a placebo effect or whatever to keep the person who's in trouble to sort of get himself do better or whatever, or it's kind of a bogus thing with there's nothing, no truth behind it, just like nowadays you may see these things happen in a lot of media and things like that. So in a way you come out with a lot of things that are substantiated. I'm thinking of basically showing you how I basically come to conclusions also in the during the process. And this is getting to astrology, one has to be a very good mathematician, because all these angles and everything is calculated to minute kind of details with those, and then the judgment is based on those. And also, having said that, so the predictions will have to have an accuracy of 70-75%. that is, I think, is the maximum anybody could do. But if it is higher than that, I think he must be a fantastic reader. And then some achieve it not by knowing the subject, but also certain factors that give them certain insight. So then, yes, we try to basically make the person pursue the right path. You are not supposed to let the person out of the consultation room, with bad kind of thoughts, and where the person is already fallen down. Its idea is basically make the person feel better and give the person the strength that is needed to fight whatever that is there, but by also sticking to the frame. I mean, you can't keep on saying a person who's about to fall flat within a couple of months, you are going to live forever and things like that. But to say, manage yourself, you'll be able to take it further and things like that. So I know certain astrologers basically, come out upfront and basically say things, but I refrain from doing that because certain odds are given to us to adhere to, and this is one of those. Basically, you are to make a person at least stay longer by a day, and make him give him enough strength. When I say him, it's basically in general terms. So the person to find whatever that courage that he needs to take it further. And I think Suraya also asked a question. Can you repeat it, please? I have basically that's gone over.
Oh, so what I said was, Chintaka, that what do you do if you have been told you have a debilitating illness?
Okay.
Don't you need, other than acknowledging the astrology, don't we need some skill sets and take differential action so that we can overcome that?
Yes.
But if we are told there's some good news, then we just accept it. Where do we go from that kind of a prediction?
Okay, Suraya, can I answer to that with the during the process? I think this will be touched on. So shall we wait for that? Okay.
Thank
you. Okay. I'll go to Selvi's question. What made me the change? When I was in the final years of high school, people talk of what is the line of work you are going to do, and what is your interest and so on. So naturally, I finished my higher education in the 70s to the latter part, and the buzzword then was IT, software, the computers and things like that. So I pursued that. I was quite good in mathematics, and therefore I pursued that and became a professional and of IT. And then for about 35 years, I kept on doing that, and I made this shift slowly into astrology. And in the mid-90s, I was sort of confronted with a bit of a health issue. When I went for an inspection for insurance upgrade or something of that nature, I was told that I have an ASD. Then that's called aerial septal defect. And when I found what it is in common language, he said, you have a hole in the heart. And that was a big shock. And at that time, this was taken as a bit of a serious thing, because you got to cut open and then do the needful. And it's a bit of a life-threatening situation. I had my family, and there were a lot of things that were crossing my mind. And I went to a few astrologers, couple of astrologers, and then few said, you are going through a torrid time, but you'll be all right. And there was one gentleman who basically looked at it and said, do it overseas, and you may not have to even cut open. You'll do fine. And nothing is shown in yours as well as your children or the wives, showing that they are to go through a bad period. So then anyway, it so happened there was a new technology that was being introduced called umbrella closure through a catheter, and I got it done without a sort of cutting open and whatever. So, and this made me basically looking to why these people said, all of them said you'll be all right, but one basically who specifically said, you don't have to even cut open or go for surgery. And this is considered as a sort of a OPD procedure in those countries. So anyway, I'm still with it, and touch wood, I basically survived with it. And this made me looking to why these people said this and why this specific person was so accurate. And then with the things that I've heard from my grandparents, and they are no longer alive. So I went to, did my basics at several places, and I kept on pursuing this until I came to a situation that I know good enough. Then I kept on trying this with my friends as a hobby. And from 2001 or 2 onwards, I started to do it kind of in a partial kind of a way. Whilst I'm in the IT, I used to do this. Then by 2008, I made this to be the most prominent profession, and then I shifted myself slowly, and in 2013, I became completely into this, and I think because I made that, the pressure, constant pressure is too much when you are in software, you basically always go with timelines, and that has a telling effect. And also at the end of the day, you find that as far as satisfaction is concerned, there's nothing much that you've achieved. You stayed there, you got some names for it and all that, but at the end of the day, the pressure has too much of an effect. And also I thought I'm good at it from the feedbacks I got. I thought I'm basically better astrologer than a software developer. So I made the change. And getting back to what are the things that I have got being a software developer, when we started our career, those were the days where the storage and the processing power were kind of scarcity in computers. We were talking of in megabytes, not in giga or terabytes. So the storage was so much less, and the processing powers were sort of horrible. You can't do much. Therefore, the whatever the coding languages we used were very friendly to the machine, meaning that it's more in zeros and ones, assembler kind of languages. You need to have your logic very sound, algorithms to be perfect to make those work, because we are working with very limited resources. And that made me drill down to things rather than taking the whatever the things that you see from the outset. And so my logic, I think, started to improve, and so is the reasoning power. And then with astrology, I tend to go to the basics to find out why. And so I think that helped me. And also, when you are in software development, you are basically open to meet various people from various cultures, backgrounds, and so on. Thereby, you basically, when you associate, then you get to know how people think in various parts of the world and what their beliefs and how they basically look at a problem and find solutions. And that helped me to basically be in line with their thinking when I basically propose a solution and so on. And can I just touch a little on astrology? So before we get into further, I'll give a basic understanding of this. So I think that helps. We talk of vibrations most of the time, and power is basically represented in the form of vibrations. And planetary positions are also basically, if you look at the planets, those have their powers are basically shown by way of vibrations. And these facts have been spoken by various renowned scientists like Einstein and so on. And these vibrations, when put together, has a collective kind of a effect on a person. And how we look at it is, if you take a person born, we take the time factor here. And then we also take the longitude and latitude to basically make the exact point. And then this combined effect of planets will be different to these locations. A person who's born in Colombo will have slightly different settings to a person who's born elsewhere, because that is why longitude and latitude are taken into consideration. So when a person is born, when the chart is basically casted, we make the planetary positions in the sky represent that in that chart. And astronomically, those are exact positions of planets at that given point. So the collective effects of planets could be gathered by a learned astrologer by looking at that chart, right? I will go a little further to this. There are 12 zodiac signs. The sky is divided into 12 zones. And these zodiac signs, you probably have heard, many have heard, even in Western countries, like starting off with Aries, and then Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer, Leo, and it goes on to 12. It completes the 12 in a cycle. And these 12 zodiac signs are owned by planets. And these sun and moon are also considered as planets. And since we are judging this from the relative position on the Earth, Earth is not presented on the chart, but all the other planets. Like for instance, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. For some whatever the reason, the other planets like Uranus and the Pluto are not considered in these charts. And this astrology has a history of over 5,000 years. Like Rishi Dayamini has written 250,000 slokas explaining these. So has Parasara. So this is a science which dates back very, very far. So these planets own the zodiac signs. Coming back to that, sun and moon are considered as a mother and the father. They own two zodiac signs like the Leo and Cancer respectively. All the other 5 planets own two zodiac signs each, right? So when a chart is done, I'll basically elaborate with in the next few minutes when I'm prompted with further questions. Basically, when a person stays in his own house, that person is in power. You have certain privileges being the owner of the house. Or if you are basically in your profession, if you are the managing director of the profession of that whatever the workplace, then you have privileged rights. Of course, the day you are asked to go, you don't have it. So that's called power of exaltation. And in the house is called the own Rashi, Swakshestra. So they have powers. So your powers basically emit certain energies and the person is blessed with those. And also at the same time, the same zodiac sign could occupy another planet who could be a friend or who could be an enemy. So then the combined effect of these two planets are basically having an effect, not individually, right? I'm just giving a very brief kind of a description. It can go into many sessions of explanation. So, and also, say Saturn and Mars are considered as two sort of enemies. When they are together, the temperament of the person is a little sort of spontaneous, and you can't bear up certain things that are not palatable and things like that. Very emotional when in stressful situations like that. And also another way you basically consider is aspects from the zodiac signs. They can see certain zodiac signs. The first house, who occupies the first house, can see who's in the 5th and in the 9th. And likewise, so anybody in the 9th house can see the person in the first house, and that's called Sneha Drushtiya. That's basically with kind of a kind heart. But if it is not so, if it's by an enemy, and then so these aspects also count. And you probably would have seen the chart on the side of the first chart. That's called Navansakam, and that is the expansion of the 7th zodiac sort of box in the first one. So likewise, you can go to divisions, about 60 divisions like this, and each division is a minute calculation, and those each division basically show different aspects. 7th house expanded called Navansakam, and it basically speaks of the spouse, the partner, or the business associates. If the children are going to be seen or predicted, then it's the Saptansaka, the 5th house expanded. If the career is going to be sort of spoken of, it will be the 10th house, which is called Dasamsa. So it goes on, and it depends on the availability of time and energy being spent. And these are not available traditional, because you can understand when a horoscope is done, the village person is paid sort of 500 or something like that. And if he's going to do all these charts, he'll probably spend about a week. So he does the minimum, and because of that, the knowledge of that has gone out too. So thanks for being with modern technology of software and all that. You can get all these things prompted by just typing in the time, the time in the longitude and latitude, and all these things. All these are prompted. So a person who knows about it can get all these facts sort of analyzed.
Thank you, Chintaka. I just like to add something to what Chintaka said about the Navamsa, right? Navamsa actually talks about your spouse. And Chintaka, when he was reading the spouse or the characteristics of the spouse of one person who had not even met the spouse at that time, he said, your spouse, his father would have some connection to being an armed personnel. You know, it can go to that amount of degree of accuracy where you take a horoscope to somebody and he looks at the Navamsa and he says, your proposed or your intended husband's father has an army background. You know, it can say so many things. I mean, it is mind-boggling, the amount of detail if it can give, if there is sufficient time for the astrologer to look into the minutest detail of the horoscope. Now, that's what we did. What we did was we gave Chintaka a case study. And we are going to ask Chintaka for his observations on this person's life so far. Okay. She is a female known to us. She's aged 61 years. And Chintaka had a meeting with her and he casted her horoscope and looked at her palm and he made some observations. And she agreed with almost all of the observations that he made. And Chintaka also made some observations on her health and well-being. And Chintaka will now expand on that. And just to remind you, listeners and everybody in the panel, these have been agreed with the person whose horoscope it was, and she has concurred with Chintaka's observations and predictions. Okay, Chintaka, please go ahead and give us your observations on this case study.
Okay, thank you, Selvin. Can I ask the host to basically share my screen so that I can show the horoscope and the things that I generally use for?
Yeah, Fazana can do that for you. Thank you.
I have made you a co-host, Chintaka. Now you can share your screen.
Fazana, she's muted.
Chintaka, you're muted, Chintaka. Can you unmute?
Okay, right. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is the chart of the person that I was given to study, and I basically take down. These are the information that I look for: the gender and the hand that they're being used for. The most common the used hand, and then the birth date, time of birth, and the place of birth. Place of birth is basically probably, I think you can see. So these are the last few information is needed for me to cast the horoscope. The other is to whether it's right-handed or left-handed is needed when I look at the palms. So I will briefly take you through what I basically spoken to you about before coming to the what I sort of what I gathered out of the horoscope. This is called the first house. This is the commonly used chart by the North Indian people, and in the southern part of the India they use the other the chart. This is called the diamond chart. And here, but representations are, it is shown differently, but everything, similar things are, all the identical things are being represented. Now, this is the first house. It says it's basically the 6th house according to the series, and that's the Virgo, sign of Virgo. And this lady belongs to the Virgo sign. And MO stands for moon, V for Venus. So in the first house, you find these two planets. In the second one, Sun and Mercury, ME for Mercury. And then Mars in the third house, Jupiter, Saturn, and Ketu, this shadowy planet, are all in this, the fourth one, the fifth house. And in the 11th house, there's Rahu. So this is the representation. And this one on the side is the 7th house expanded, all Navamsakam. Okay, and you will see when you look at it, okay, Moon and Venus are together here. And we know there are 360 degrees in a circle, and there are 12 zodiac signs. And if you divide that, you will get to 30 degrees. So each sign represents 30 degrees. So for all I know, this moon could be in this corner, to the rightmost corner, and the Venus could be in the leftmost corner, whereby they don't even associate each other. They'll have to come within about 8 degrees to have a sort of a conjunction or have effect of sort of combined effects. So therefore, I need to see the degrees they are in. We'll get to that later. And it happens for this Sun and Mercury here, and then Jupiter, Saturn, and Ketu. All these will have to be studied in depth to see what kind of better or detrimental effects that each and every one will have. But one thing I can say by looking at it up front is that these Ketu and Rahu in two corners, and all the planets are weighing to one side. This shows that this person, when going through a bit of a challenging time, or when things are basically not favorable, the balance could be lost. Kind of mentality could be a little worrisome. And there are people who would get hit and bounce back like a rubber ball, right, in the water. But there are certain who will take time and come out slowly after they make up their mind and out of it. So I'll take you to the next slide, and we'll come back to this to show how degrees are basically calculated in this. Okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, and here you will see, here in the second side, on the right side, you will see Sun. Forget about the other letters, Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, and all these planets are placed here. And also in the second column, in that, let's say for instance, Sun, 18 Li. Li stands for the zodiac sign, Libra. Okay, and 18 is the degree. 59 is 1/60th of a degree. Okay, so Sun is in the Libra zodiac sign after Virgo. You get the second house after Virgo is Libra, and in there Sun is here. You can see my cursor, right? Sun is here, and where it is positioned is shown by this in the 18th degree and almost the 19th degree, because 59th of degrees and the 60th degrees have passed, and it is almost a 19th degree. And Mercury is here in the 0th degree. So you can see Mercury is much more towards the first house in the corner, in the borderline case, and Sun is far away. So this is just to give an idea how these are basically to be considered. And also Moon, if you take, Moon is in the 8th degree here in Virgo. VI stands for Virgo, and in the 8th degree. And then you have Venus. Venus is in the 28th degree here. So they are too far too. But if you take Saturn in the 1st degree, and also here you can see, follow my cursor, it's in Capricorn in the 1st degree. So this is Capricorn, Saturn is in the 1st degree. So Jupiter is in the 6th degree, you see. So Jupiter and Saturn are in more or less conjunction. And Ketu is in the 29th degree. Okay, so you have to take those things into account. So let's get back to the first slide again. Okay, first slide again. Thereby, and also these zodiac signs are given certain sort of, it denotes certain duties. Like for instance, the first house shows the character. And the second house basically speaks of deposits, what the savings. So, and also the life after being married. And also physically it shows the mouth, the way that the person can speak and all that. And the third house basically shows the talent, what she has basically brought from the past life, as we as Buddhists or Hindus say, and probably the talent given or the given by the God or whoever the creator, the person. And then the fourth house is basically the mentality of the person, the mother, and also probably the house and things like that. How we the house is basically looked at and how those aspects are basically governed. And the fifth house for children, the happiness, and also so on. And sixth house is Rogasthana. It's not a pleasant place. Rogasthana basically is takes charge in showing the illnesses that the person may be prone to. Seventh house, as we've spoken earlier, the spouse. Eighth house is called Marakasthana or the Guptasthana. If anything, if a person is basically shown the way of ending life, the eighth house basically takes a bit of a prominence. Ninth house is called the Bhagyasthana. This is this. And that house is basically shows your bhagya, your fortune, how you are basically protected by that. 10th house shows the work and work you are involved in, what kind of a person, what kind of, how active you are, and so on. 11th house is the earnings, 12th house the spending. So we have to interpret these things with the planets, and also the planets will have certain characteristics. Moon basically in charge of the thinking pattern. Venus is basically the artistic talent and the beauty of seeing the beauty of things. And Sun is the power behind the personality. Mercury is the person, the planet who basically provides the ability of communication and so on. Mars is a very sort of active person who would get into action, who would basically act on another's sort of a issue, who would basically come to the forefront and try to give answers. That is the good Mars. Bad Mars is the culprit who will basically create problems wherever it goes. Like, and
Chintaka, can I just come in on this?
Yeah.
Just that when we had our previous meeting, you said the effect of Mars. She had, she has a certain character.
Yeah.
And also that she lost one of her siblings.
Yes, I was thinking of basically making a round and coming to that. I think we are running short of time, so I'll come to the predictions I made.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Now, I predicted based on these that she is a good presenter who can basically use her voice and other means to basically project what she really means in a way that the others understand. So a virtue of her is basically being the ability to present it. Right. And the other thing is this Jupiter and Mars combination for Lord of the fourth house and the Lord of the fifth house together makes her a consultant who would basically give advice to others to follow. Okay. And that is another prominent factor of his. And Moon being there at the top, she is basically made to feel what others think, and also at times be a little, may have some phlegm kind of issues, like, feel a bit of heaviness in the head when the timing is not right. Like if exposed to the winter too much, she'll probably be affected, and there could be a laziness associated with it. And we'll look for beauty of all in presenting things. And Mars in the third house is in its own house, so that is made to be quite a prominent sort of a planet being there. And that planet basically gives looking for others sort of issues and try to provide answers to that, and take the forefront of their issues and be the spokesperson kind of. And also got to remember that this Mars also happens to be, as I said, the Mars would own two places, and this Mars happens to be the Lord of the eighth house, which is Marakasthana. So as much as this Mars may give those characteristics when the time is good, when being affected, it will give those build up toxins in the system, and probably it may cause certain failures or issues in the system of the person. So this Mars has probably make her sort of give advice to others as the other factors showed, and also be concerned about it and be the spokes, would present the cases for others very well and take the issues of others to heart and basically fight on others.
And you were also saying, Chintaka, that these acquired or accumulated toxins you were able to see it on her palm.
Yes. Give me a few minutes. I'll basically touch on these things quickly. And right. This Mars, when affected, is basically give toxins to build up of toxins in the system. It happens so. And if you are in a situation like that, every day when you basically meet up people with issues and all these things, however much it's an outside job or outside kind of a advisory kind of a situation, you take these things into your system. And you need to basically do this detoxing process on a regular basis. If it is not done, what happens is those will have an effect on the person. How do you detox is basically based on, we'll talk of those. So those will have an effect on you. So she is liable, being this also Mars being the Lord of the 8th house, Marakasthana, she is liable to for build up of toxins and anything that will basically carry around her and affect sort of effects where blood circulatory system will be affected in a way where the toxins will cause the illness, like sort of cancer and things like that. But the thing is, when we say things like that, we have to be very gentle about it, not come up front, sit there and say that you have, you will have cancer and things like that. You have to be very gentle and then give the facts very slowly and get open up, which I did in that sense. And then certainly it was sort of admitted thereafter that there were issues. And also I said, Mars is also basically shows the siblings. It shows siblings. It is accepted planet to show siblings, and it is so. It happens to be in the place of the siblings. Third house also shows siblings, and which is there in a very prominent way. It shows that certain ill effects on the siblings, not by this person, but this happens to show certain indicators. And when a bad planet basically goes over it, it basically gives a certain bad effects on siblings. So then I basically happened to say that if something bad happened to a sibling, and then she admitted. And also I asked on the Ketu in the 5th house, basically, as I said earlier, 5th house denotes children as well. There are Ketu being there, and also Lord of the 6th house. Lord of the 6th house is being 6th house being Aquarius. The Lord of that is also Saturn, and that Saturn is in the 5th house with Jupiter and Ketu. So that has an effect on conceivement of children. So that also I asked, which basically she agreed. It took about 10 years with difficulty to get conceivement, and thereafter it basically was all right. So these were also shown. And also I said about 3 years ago, it could have been roughly about 3 years ago, it could have been a rough time for her, which would have caused her issues and worries. And also I also see about, say, 12 years ago, it could have been another sort of worrying some period for her. So this is a very rough sort of thing I'm saying.
Can I ask you, sorry, can I butt in? A lot of them on the panel, a lot of us on the panel are believers. What do you say to the skeptics, for instance, like me, the skeptics? Okay. What do you have to say? Because I think the big, sadly, because we're running out of time, I want to try and get at least another question in. Just, this time of pandemic and uncertainty within the country, a lot of the people have this question about where are we going with the pandemic and what is in store for them. Plus, there's so much uncertainty within the country. I think people have questions. So what do you say to people like me who are skeptics?
Okay. And Carol, I'm also going to ask the question so he can answer both together.
Right.
Chintaka, are you recommending, we know the population in the world are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Are you recommending that we do a astrological reading and be prepared to take preventative steps? Is that a preventative step that you recommend?
Okay. And I will take just a second or two. This is the palm print of the person, and here you will see the the blackness in the middle. These basically denote certain sicknesses, but it has returned the pink color to the palm, basically making the circulatory system better, but still certain toxics are remaining. With that, I will basically wind up then and get back to the question, okay?
Yeah, and Chintaka, can you remove the slide? Thanks.
Okay, I will. Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Is that all right? Okay, okay.
And
Now,
I think Farzana also has a question. If you can make the question, then he can answer
Yeah,
it.
maybe
all
you can
together.
ask Fazana. Yeah.
Can't hear
Farzana,
you.
you're
Farzana.
muted.
So my question is, how come this pandemic wasn't predicted by the palmists and the horoscope readers? And, how come they couldn't help us prevent it before it happens? Because I'm all about prevention rather than being reactive. I'm a more proactive personality. Yeah.
if you take any profession, there are various sectors. You take an accountant, there are management accountants and so forth. That if you take an engineer, there are electrical engineers, structural engineers and so on. And I ended up being a software engineer, let's say. So you can ask the relevant questions only from them in their specialized area. Unfortunately, astrology for many is basically a kind of a person who would provide all kinds of answers for every situation in the world, which is not. What I have specialized is personal horoscopes reading. But you will see most of the guys who are into my subject, whether good or bad, have taken a sort of fondness in commenting on the other things that they have not sort of specialized. Now, I know people like B.V. Raman and people of that nature in India have a basic kind of a seasonal prediction for countries and things like that, because it's a different subject. They look at things like, for instance, when the moon, on the dark day of the moon, when it surfaces, the time is taken for that month and a horoscope is basically done, and they come out with predictions based on that. Yearly is also like that. So that's not unfortunately, it's not an area that I have specialized. But general question is basically answering this, when this thing occurred in 2019, if I remember right, these things happened, occurred at a very bad positioning where a Kala Sarpa was in effect. So that when something basically starts at a bad time, the spreading also is higher. And now what happens is, more than anything else, the fear factor has basically driven people off their normal senses. The people are in a kind of a phobia kind of situation. The sense, you have to have your common sense will have to prevail in certain issues. Now, we didn't have this kind of media or publicity those days, and we've gone through many obstacles. But then we started to believe what is being said by our local doctor, local kind of specialist, and follow those. And then the things were basically under control. Now what happens is, every day you see a lot of detrimental things, but so you tend to basically go by the tide, and your common sense basically goes out. I mean, common sense is basically take right food, which is not also happening, and basically associate right kind of atmospheric situations, places, and do your health routines well, and keep your immune system high, which will enable to tackle many. Now, unfortunately, the situation is where a particular percentage gets ill and sick and succumb to these. It's basically anybody who gets it end up like dying, which is not the real sense. I mean, we got to be take all the precautions, but then we have to have our common sense. But people I see are going out of that common sense now. So that fear factor is basically being very detrimental. And coming to Carol, about this, again, the bouncer to me, and basically, as I said, 70% of if anybody can predict with an accuracy of 70%, he's a very good the astrologer. Why? Not a single science can do better than that. You take me any science, any sphere of birth, where they can say with 100% accuracy that this is what I do. And so give that same leverage to us too. And having said that, there are people who basically go to town with the little kind of education. You can't do this with 6 months of studying. You can't do this by following a course. You've got to basically be at it, So it depends on the ability of the person and also the knowledge. This is a 5,000-year-old kind of, even further, go back to those number of years. What I have learned It's just a minimum portion. I must be very frank about it. And that is what I'm going to use it to the best ability.
Chintaka,
Chintaka, I wanted to ask you one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sylvie, give me a second.
Right.
I wanted to ask you one more thing because we have very little time left. You know, in Sri Lanka and in this Asian area, region, people are very heavily into astrology, and also amulets and talismans, etc. And you can see that even our politicians, every hand, every finger is wearing all these, and wrist is wearing all this. So I also think, you know, a lot of even my workers, they come and say, you know, somebody said my mother is going through a bad period and therefore you have to spend 80,000 rupees to make a talisman. You know, and I did bunkum, you know, because overseas nobody, you know, most people don't believe in all of this. And so what do you have to say about that? Very briefly, please, because we're running out of time now.
We all know there's an aura. Right? There are 3 auras from what I learned. So, you know, those auras can be affected by the outside kind of powers or whatever. So then you do pranic healing kind of things to patch up the outer aura, and then we see these Kapu Mahatya and all these things with the tide leaf, bunch of leaves, the mango leaves. We do this as well. So there are various. But when it happens, when you start emitting from your system certain things, so the only way to do that is basically by associating yourself with a kind of a transmitter. This talisman basically works like that, okay? Which you get the powers, and basically in combination with your own sort of energy, it basically starts to emit. Of course, your detoxing process and all these, and the medicine you got to take will assist it. So you can't do away with only that. And the best is basically trying to change the mindset. But when we go back in number, you know, in age, you know, you can't basically expect people to talk of this mindset. You know, this is you know, it goes off their head. I mean, they are not. With all that due respect to people of those areas, they are not basically have that the sort of surrounding or the education or whatever in this sense. Now we know we are exposed to those things with our sort of subjects that we cover. So in that sense, of course, the change of mindset is a bit of a difficult thing. So always they depend on these. But my say is always try to change the mindset. You are given a scope in this, not an exact path. So you can choose to basically walk on the left corner or the right corner or in the middle path. So if you go in the right side, you collect a lot of merits. If you basically go in the corner, you don't, right. So this incident could be taken as being hit by a stone. If the merits are in the size of a mouse, okay, the mouse may succumb, so you end up. But if you have the size of a dinosaur, basically you may even get with a scrape. So it's basically the way that you conduct your life.
Chintaka, one last question, because our listeners would be interested. Are you saying astrology can prevent and cure disease?
Well, you first of all, you need time to cure things. So about 4 or 5 years in advance. So this is not the science where you come when you're about to be operated, when you are basically announced certain bad things to overcome. It cannot be done. It cannot be done. But if you are given for about a 4 or 5 year span, then you can change this slightly, and you evade going through the nucleus, right? You will still be burned, but you will not be, dead by that. But then again, we are not immortal. Someday we basically got to pack up. So there are certain karmic effects you can basically get. There are certain that you can't affect, but it could be made to be much more peaceful by doing this.
But
So,
Chintaka, that means you're saying that the astrology is actually like a health check.
Absolutely right. And also coming back to that, the earlier question by this lady, you can't basically evade karmic effects. I don't believe in that.
Right.
All you do is you strengthen your tolerance, and it is no longer a bothering factor for you in that manner. And also you strengthen in the specific area, you strengthen your sort of power. Like for instance, if you are to pay 500,000 or $1 million, here you are strengthened to think it's nothing, I'll be able to do that. And the other thing is your earnings will be higher. You will earn 2-3 million. So pocketing out is not a big issue for you, but you will have to pay for it.
Thank you so much, Chintaka. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, Selvi.
Just one last question, Carol. One last question.
Please go ahead.
I think we're going back to what Carol was asking. For when we find out there's turbulence, what are the skill sets and the knowledge sources that we need to, in order to put our seatbelts on, like I think you were talking more about cosmic energy vibration, sitting in temples, mosques, and so on.
Okay.
Can you expand on that? Yeah.
Okay, now for instance, we know if you take the Chinese way of reading, we talk of earth, fire, water, and the air element. And likewise we talk of Apo, Tejo, Vayu, Patavi, same things in a different name. So anything that comes with bad malefics are basically given ways of basically washing it off too, like being in the open in the early sunrise time, being exposed to the sun, and basically letting your earth, your whatever the toxins in a manner being open to the lawns and the sea, the sea sand, or walking by the sea. So these things are basically to be guided by the exact the effects of the person. And also it's good to do meditation and these things being at home, but there are specialized places, and these structures are, I think Selvi could with your background could fill further information, like all these temples and all these mosques, churches are all these are built like a in a whole kind of a frame, with the top portion being opened up to the air, and it basically sort of shows the kind of a womb where you gather a lot of good energy. So if you can meditate in an area like that, whatever the belief, it will give you better sort of standings and absorption power will be higher, and also open areas like with proper wind and things like that.
And pranic
Thank
healing,
you
you
so
mentioned.
much. Sorry,
Yeah.
Selvi, we really have to end now. Thank you so much. I mean, you can see they're really interested, Chintaka, and they really want to know more. Maybe we can have you back at some later state and discuss this in more depth. So
Okay.
on that note, I just want to remind everybody, thank you so much for joining us. The next show is on the 25th of August. And in the meantime, if you check on YouTube, Wisdom Wednesdays Sri Lanka, you will find all the different shows that we have done on various subjects. Thank you, Chintaka. Thank you very much for being with us. And I'm still, trying to be open-minded. We will talk more later.
Okay.
To the panel, and from the panel to all of you, thank you very much and good night.
Thank you very much for having me.